The lake was calm that morning, glassy and still, reflecting the pale light of early sun. It was the kind of silence that made people whisper instinctively, even when they were alone. I had come there the same way I always did, parking near the gravel path and walking down to the water's edge. The lake wasn't part of the HOA community in spirit, but many residents believed it belonged to them simply because they could see it from their oversized homes. To me, it was just a place of routine, quiet, familiar, and grounded in long-standing rights that predated the community itself. I stood near the shoreline, watching the ripples move outward, unaware that I had already been noticed by someone who believed presence alone was a crime. From across the manicured lawn near the walking trail, HOA Karen noticed me. She stopped mid-stride, sunglasses perched aggressively on her face, phone already in hand. In her mind, the lake was restricted, exclusive, and heavily regulated by rules she had memorized but never truly understood. Seeing someone she didn't immediately recognize triggered the familiar alarm in her head. She watched me intently, cataloging imagined violations, unauthorized access, loitering, trespassing. The longer I remained by the water, the more convinced she became that she had uncovered a serious breach. To her, the lake was a controlled asset, and I was an intruder contaminating her idea of order. Karen paced back and forth near the trail, glancing between me and her phone. She didn't ask questions. She didn't check records. She relied solely on instinct fueled by entitlement. She convinced herself I was a vagrant, a squatter, or worse, someone dangerous. The narrative grew rapidly in her mind, feeding on every imagined detail. She believed it was her responsibility to protect the neighborhood, even from situations she completely misunderstood. With a sharp breath and practiced confidence, she dialed 911, ready to perform her role as the neighborhood's self-appointed guardian. Karen's call was filled with urgency and exaggeration. She described a suspicious man near the lake, claiming I was trespassing on HOA-controlled property and making residents uncomfortable. She emphasized fear, danger, and urgency, ensuring the situation sounded far more serious than it was. The dispatcher listened calmly, asking routine questions, but Karen's certainty left little room for doubt. She ended the call feeling triumphant, convinced that law enforcement would arrive and validate her authority. She stood at a distance, watching me like a hunter waiting for the trap to close. The sound of tires on gravel broke the calm of the morning. 2 police vehicles pulled into the lot near the lake, their presence instantly shifting the atmosphere. Karen straightened her posture, confidence swelling as she stepped forward to meet them. The officers surveyed the area, taking in the peaceful scene that contradicted the urgency of the call. I remained by the water, unaware of the story already constructed about me. Karen gestured dramatically in my direction, explaining her version of events with rehearsed indignation. The officers listened, nodding politely, before turning their attention toward me. The officers approached calmly, their demeanor professional and measured. They asked basic questions about my presence and purpose. There was no hostility, only routine procedure. I explained calmly, knowing exactly where I stood, both literally and legally. Karen watched closely, arms crossed, confident that any moment now the officers would confirm her assumptions. She expected handcuffs, removal, validation. Instead, she saw hesitation. The officers' expressions changed subtly as they processed the information. What had been a routine call was beginning to take an unexpected turn. When the officers verified my identity, everything stopped. Their posture shifted instantly. The casual tone disappeared, replaced by recognition and respect. They exchanged brief looks that said more than words ever could. The lake, the property, the supposed trespass, it all snapped into focus. I wasn't just allowed to be there. I had authority far beyond Karen's imagination. The officer's demeanor toward Karen changed as well, becoming cautious and firm. The power dynamic flipped in an instant, leaving Karen frozen in place, her certainty evaporating. Karen sensed the shift immediately. Her confident stance faltered as she watched the officers treat me not as a suspect, but as someone whose presence required no justification. She attempted to reassert control, gesturing again toward the lake, insisting it was HOA property. The officers corrected her calmly, explaining jurisdiction and ownership in terms that left no room for argument. Karen's face tightened as her understanding collapsed. The authority she assumed she wielded meant nothing here. Other residents nearby slowed their walks, sensing drama. They watched as Karen's voice lost its edge and her posture shrank. The officers explained that the call was unnecessary, that no laws had been broken, and that misuse of emergency services was a serious issue. The realization spread quietly among the onlookers. Karen was no hero. She was the problem. The lake returned to silence, but the social atmosphere had shifted permanently. The officers clarified the situation fully. The lake was not HOA controlled in the way Karen believed. My presence was lawful, documented, and unquestionable. Karen's call had been based entirely on assumption. She was warned firmly about making unfounded emergency calls. The message was clear: authority requires knowledge, not confidence. Karen nodded stiffly, unable to hide her embarrassment. The officers returned their attention to me briefly, ensuring everything was in order before preparing to leave. Word spread quickly through the community. By evening, the story had already transformed into a cautionary tale. HOA leadership learned about the 911 call and the outcome. Karen's actions raised serious concerns about liability and reputation. Meetings were scheduled. Emails circulated. The association faced uncomfortable questions about unchecked enforcement and personal vendettas disguised as rule following. Karen's role within the HOA came under scrutiny almost immediately. At the next HOA meeting, Karen was confronted with the facts. Her assumptions, her call, and her public embarrassment had consequences. She was formally reprimanded and removed from any enforcement-related responsibilities. The authority she once enjoyed vanished overnight. Neighbors who once avoided conflict with her now openly questioned her judgment. The power she believed was permanent proved fragile. I returned to the lake the following morning. The water was just as calm, indifferent to the drama that had unfolded beside it. Nature had no interest in HOA politics or entitlement. The shoreline existed as it always had, grounded in real ownership and long-standing rights. The experience reinforced something simple and powerful: knowledge is stronger than noise. The lake remained a place of peace, untouched by Karen's failed attempt at control. The HOA became noticeably quieter in the weeks that followed. Enforcement slowed. Assumptions were questioned. Residents felt more comfortable existing without constant surveillance. Karen kept her distance, her presence diminished. The community adjusted, learning from the incident without ever needing to name it aloud. The lake, once a point of contention, became a symbol of the limits of HOA authority. In the end, the situation left behind a clear lesson. Authority without understanding collapses under truth. Karen believed she owned the lake because she could see it. The HOA believed rules replaced law. And the police call meant to assert dominance instead revealed ignorance. I continued visiting the lake, unbothered and unchallenged. The cops didn't freeze because of fear, they froze because they learned the truth. And truth has a way of stopping noise instantly.